There are things we know well, yet we choose to ignore. We live as if time were infinite, as if anything could be postponed until tomorrow. But at some point, in the stillness, a quiet voice rises from within. If not now, then when? Perhaps you're exhausted, not just from work or the weight of life, but from the strain of appearing strong every single day, pretending to be okay, to smile, to need no one, while deep down, all you want is to scream, "I'm burned out." And if that's how you feel, it's okay. That doesn't make you weak. It only proves you're still capable of feeling, still human. This video doesn't promise to make you feel better right away. On the contrary, it might bring you to tears. For sometimes, pain is the only thing that can wake us up. What you're about to hear isn't lofty philosophy, nor comforting platitudes. These are 7 truths. A part of you has always known them, but never dared to face. They don't come from books, but from lived experience, from loss, disappointment, and silent collapse. And if you're brave enough to stay until the end, maybe today will be the day you begin to live differently. 1. We chase the wrong things and lose ourselves in the process. There is a quiet spiral many of us have been drawn into to varying degrees, the desire for recognition. From a young age, we learn to follow what earns praise and avoid what draws criticism. Over time, this reward-punishment system shapes how we live, pleasing others and dodging judgment. As we grow older, this tendency doesn't fade. It only becomes more subtle. We choose careers deemed secure, adopt lifestyles considered desirable, even shape our personalities to match our surroundings. Slowly, we mold ourselves to fit others' expectations. Recognition, if misperceived, becomes a gilded cage. From the outside, it gleams, admiration, compliments, the sense of being valued. But within, we lose the right to live authentically. Every action becomes a question. What will they think? We grow anxious when unnoticed, unpraised, or when we fail to match society's metric of success. The belief that our worth hinges on external approval becomes an invisible pressure, tethering each step we take to the gaze of others. This breeds an inner conflict. We strive for societal validation, yet feel increasingly estranged from ourselves. Many, after reaching long-held dreams, a title, a house, a life admired by others, are left hollow. Because they've lived too long in roles assigned by others, they forget who they are and what they truly want. Their victories bring no real joy, for they stem not from within, but from the pressure to conform. External recognition is also the most fleeting of currencies. Today you're celebrated, tomorrow forgotten. If your life revolves around maintaining an image, anxiety becomes your companion. You worry about not being enough, about others surpassing you, about being left behind. The cost is inner peace, something that only arises when you live in alignment with your true self, not with a version curated for applause. Worse still, chasing recognition blinds us to inner signals. When fatigue sets in, instead of pausing to listen, we push harder, afraid of appearing weak. When a job or environment no longer fits, we endure, afraid of skeptical glances. Over time, suppressed emotions accumulate, forming psychological pressure, even identity crises. We begin to doubt everything. Is this the life I want? Am I even being real? And worst of all, if I'm not validated, who am I? This is not a condemnation of ambition. The desire to grow is natural and necessary. But when that drive is rooted in the hunger to be acknowledged, it becomes a double-edged sword. It can propel us forward, but also trap us in endless striving, never feeling enough. And when life is governed by this need, exhaustion becomes existential. It drains not just the body, but the soul. In modern society, human worth is often measured by numbers, assets, status, followers, degrees, accolades. From media to social platforms, the image of a perfect life is tied to wealth, fame, busyness, and success. Rarely do we hear about inner peace. Instead, we're flooded with luxury cars, exotic trips, and achievements paraded to prove personal worth. Many sacrifice their inner stillness, chasing what is merely applauded. This trade-off happens gradually. It begins with small choices: staying late to impress the boss, buying expensive things to feel deserving, posting polished images for validation. Slowly, we grow accustomed to seeking external affirmation, losing the ability to hear our own truth. Tired but still pushing, sad but still smiling, unraveling but still posting. I'm fine. Each time, a part of us, the one that knows what truly matters, gets silenced. Inner peace is the mind unburdened by anxiety, competition, or the need to prove. It's the fullness of presence, the quiet acceptance of self, without external validation. But in a world obsessed with comparison, this state grows rare. When personal worth is tied to numbers or standards not our own, contentment remains forever out of reach. There's always someone better, something newer, a higher peak to climb. As a result, modern life feels increasingly tense, depleted, and adrift. Though busy, many feel empty. Though successful, they remain anxious. Though surrounded by abundance, peace eludes them. They earn the dream job, the beautiful home, the secure bank account, yet they struggle to sleep, to breathe, to smile, because they've invested everything into building an ideal life by others' standards and neglected their inner world. Pursuing superficial values isn't wrong if we remain clear on our true purpose. But in most cases, vanity creeps in by exploiting our sense of lack. It convinces us that just one more purchase, one more milestone, will make us okay. But okay never arrives. Because peace isn't about how much we have. It's about how little we truly need. And that can't be found outside. The danger grows when this becomes a psychological reflex. People begin to believe that a life worth living is one admired. They lose the simple joys: a morning without alarms, a rainy afternoon with a book, a conversation uninterrupted by a screen. These may seem small, but they are the soul's true compass. When hollow values become our guide, we lose not only our stillness, we lose our sensitivity, our connection, and ultimately, ourselves. 2. We fear change, so we stay with familiar pain. Humans are creatures of habit. Once familiar with a place, a relationship, or a way of life, positive or not, we tend to cling to it because familiarity offers a sense of safety. Stability, even if superficial, creates a comfort zone where everything feels predictable, controllable, and free of surprises. This leads us to hold on to what no longer serves us, even when we know it brings no joy or meaning. Many remain in painful situations simply because they've grown used to them. A job that drains but pays. A loveless relationship that preserves the image of a whole family. A pressured lifestyle that still earns the label successful. These, while clearly unfit, are maintained due to a fear of the risk change brings. People convince themselves that familiar pain is easier than uncertain freedom. The mind craves certainty, even if it comes with suffering. This often happens when change means starting over, learning new things, adjusting routines, facing the fear of failure. That's why some stay too long in a job that breaks them or a relationship that wounds them. Not because they don't know better, but because false stability offers the illusion that at least things are okay. But that sense of stability is an illusion. Like standing on a rotting raft, it floats, but may sink at any time. Clinging to what's outdated doesn't solve the core problem. It only erodes our adaptability and confidence. We lose flexibility, trust in ourselves, even our sense of identity. Without that familiar situation, we no longer know who we are. False stability also numbs us to the real quality of our lives. The longer we endure a situation, the more we accept it as normal, that all jobs are this stressful, all relationships this dull, all lives this weary. This creates a negative loop. We're unhappy but fear change, then accept unhappiness as a fact of life. Another risk emerges when that illusion of stability shatters through job loss, a breakup, or sudden upheaval. Those who've built their identity on outdated structures collapse with them. This doesn't happen to those who've embraced change all along. But for those trapped in false comfort, the fall can lead to panic or depression. In truth, clinging to the old is natural, but not always wise. When stability is no longer built on solid ground, but on the unconscious repetition of something that's no longer right, it becomes a barrier to growth. To truly live, one must sometimes let go of what's familiar, not because the future is certain, but because the present deserves better. With each change, we don't just fear the unknown, we fear the loss. The old, however unfit, carries memories, habits, and pieces of our identity. Letting go isn't just releasing a situation or person. It's parting with who we once believed we were. That fear is no small matter. It's the silent wall that holds many back from deeper growth. People often define themselves by what's long held: a job of many years, a love once deep, a role long played. When forced to change, they lose not just a present reality, but the story of who they thought they were. This disorients them, stirs anxiety, and leads them to resist anything that threatens the status quo, even if that status quo is suffocating. So rather than embrace potential, they fixate on what they fear losing. Another reason we resist change is emotional loyalty to the past. A job that once lifted us in hard times, a partner who once brought joy, a place that once felt safe. These become symbols of meaning. Even if they no longer fit, we cling, feeling disloyal by letting go. This emotional bond delays forward motion, even when we know something better lies ahead. Biologically, the brain is wired to prioritize safety and routine. Risks tied to change trigger threat responses. This explains why many, despite dissatisfaction, refuse new paths. Their brains treat change like danger. So they return to the old, the known, the emotionally safe, even if it leads nowhere. Procrastinating on change often wears the mask of reason. It's not the right time. I need more space. Maybe tomorrow. But beneath these words lies an unnamed fear. Fear of losing the familiar. That fear keeps us still and often lets opportunity pass unused. Eventually, hesitation becomes our default, living with the feeling of knowing I need change, but can't act. Growth rarely comes in comfort. It appears as challenge, pulling us from the safe and into the unknown. But if we let fear of losing the old dominate, we reject these trials, and with them, the unseen possibilities they carry. Instead of turning a page, we reread an old chapter so many times, it ceases to move us. In the end, what many regret isn't failing, it's never trying when the chance was there. They don't mourn what they lost, but what they never allowed themselves to become. Personal growth is impossible if we cling to what no longer serves our evolution. To grow up is to let go, not because the old has no value, but because the new is ready to emerge. 3. We fear death, yet not a mediocre life. Death is inevitable, yet it remains one of the least contemplated topics. In modern culture, death is hidden, spoken of in euphemisms, or avoided altogether. We fear it not just because it ends physical existence, but because it evokes helplessness, something beyond control. But this fear, rather than inspiring us to live fully, often leads us to delay living and forget the value of the present. Obsessed with the end, we try to prolong life, paying little attention to its quality. We adopt safe, repetitive lifestyles, avoiding all risk, to feel like we're living longer. But longevity doesn't equate to depth. When we focus on evading death, we postpone what matters: love, change, experience, creation. We wait for the right moment, when we're financially stable, brave enough, ready. But that moment is always shifting. Meanwhile, time slips by, unannounced. Many live as if they'll never die. They waste time on trivial pursuits, ending each day drained without knowing why. They postpone real conversations, overdue apologies, broken relationships, assuming there's always more time. But truth is, no one knows how much time they have. That very uncertainty makes each moment priceless. Still, fear of death makes us forget this, causing us to treat today as mere preparation for a tomorrow that may never come. This avoidance fosters a shallow way of life. We're busy, yet lack depth. We move from task to task, goal to goal, to avoid reflecting on existence. In this state, being fully present, attentive and aware, becomes rare. We dine with family while our minds wander. We walk through parks while glued to our phones. Every unobserved moment is life lost, not to death, but to distraction. Rather than confront death to live more consciously, many let fear reduce their potential. They choose safety over meaning, comfort over courage, silence over truth. Fear of death becomes a reason not to live. But in this paradox, the value of life slips away. Each moment is missed as a stepping stone toward some ideal tomorrow. In many philosophical and spiritual traditions, death is not feared. It's a reminder of life's worth. But as modern society forgets death, it also forgets how to live. We become consumed by performance, achievement, appearance, yet disconnected from the now. Chasing a future that never arrives, we let the present escape. In the end, fear of death may make us try to live longer, but it doesn't help us live deeper. And when life lacks presence, awareness, and connection to each moment, it stops being life. It becomes mere existence, endlessly postponed. In today's world, many choose the predictable path, the one with fewer disruptions and risks, believing safety is the ultimate priority. They pick stable jobs without passion, stay in unhappy relationships out of fear of loneliness, resist change, not from incapacity, but because they've grown used to their comfort zone. In doing so, they slowly accept a mediocre life, not by choice, but believing it's the price of avoiding uncertainty. Mediocrity here doesn't mean failure or worthlessness. It means a life lacking breakthrough or inner vitality, where every day repeats itself. Wake, work, return, repeat. No questions asked, no new ventures, no pursuit of untapped potential. Not from lack of dreams, but from the belief that chasing them is too risky, too unrealistic. So they trade inner excitement for surface-level security. This is often rooted in fear of failure. Modern society celebrates success, but punishes mistakes, so we hesitate to try unless assured of victory. We fear ridicule, judgment, loss, so we cling to the familiar even when joy is gone. We tell ourselves staying put is wise, while risk is reckless. In that belief, mediocrity becomes the norm, not because it's good, but because it demands no change. Social conformity reinforces this. When everyone lives in the same loop, difference seems dangerous. One who quits a secure job to follow passion is seen as reckless. One who leaves a safe yet cold relationship may be called immature. These judgments make us walk silently, doing what's acceptable instead of what's true. Over time, mediocrity isn't just tolerated, it's praised as maturity. The consequence is a slow erosion of spirit. No crisis, no catastrophe, just a dulling routine. No clear pain, but no joy either. A quiet void builds inside. We sense something missing, but can't name it. It's the regret in hindsight, the envy of others who dared, the whisper that says, "I could be more," with no idea where to start. If ignored, these feelings deepen into inner emptiness. In this state, we seek temporary distractions, excess spending, non-stop entertainment, needless busyness. To avoid the truth, we're living below our potential. But mediocrity can't be filled from the outside. It can only be replaced by a life of intention, presence, and courage, where we live aligned with what we truly desire. In short, when safety becomes the top priority, mediocrity is the hidden cost. And it costs more than we think, not just our present vitality, but even our vision of what life could be. In fearing death, many quietly surrender the chance to truly live. 4. We fear silence because we fear meeting ourselves. In modern life, true silence is rare. From waking to sleeping, we're surrounded by voices, sounds, images, and endless information streams. In such a world, silence becomes scarce and to many unsettling, not because of the lack of noise, but because silence reveals thoughts long buried or ignored. We naturally avoid discomfort. Thoughts of fear, failure, or unhealed wounds are tucked beneath the noise of busyness. But when there's no one to talk to, nothing to do, no screen to scroll, the mind begins to echo with its own voice. Unanswered questions, suppressed emotions, forgotten memories rise without permission. That's why silence feels uneasy. It doesn't create problems, it reveals them. In silence, we can no longer hide. No roles, no masks, just ourselves. For those carrying unresolved pain or guilt, this feels like being attacked by one's own mind. Not because silence is dangerous, but because it forces inner confrontation. In stillness, life slows. The mind is no longer bombarded by stimulation. Deep thoughts, those too quiet to break through the noise, finally emerge. Some may feel lost or overwhelmed, realizing their minds are full of conflicting questions. Who am I doing this for? Why am I not happy? Am I living true to myself? These questions aren't bad. They're signs that the mind is clearing. But many aren't ready to face them, so they treat silence as a threat. They quickly fill it with noise, images, anything to distract. Repeated often, this becomes a habit of inner avoidance, cutting off connection with their real feelings and identity. When we never pause, we lose the ability to observe our thoughts clearly. We don't know what we feel because we never sit long enough to listen. We don't know what we want because every decision is rushed. And unprocessed thoughts don't vanish. They retreat, silently shaping our emotions, actions, and choices. Silence, then, is both an opportunity and a challenge. It reveals our psychological structure. It brings wounds to the surface, but also the chance to heal if we dare to look. But healing only begins when escape ends. And for that, we must learn to accept silence, not as absence, but as a sacred return to self. Being present with oneself, sitting in silence, doing nothing but observing one's inner world, is among the hardest things for modern humans. In a world of constant motion and demand, stillness is a luxury. Many feel uneasy, even anxious, without something to distract them. No phone, no task, no feed. This isn't just habit. It reflects a deep fear of the emptiness within. What we avoid isn't the quiet. It's not knowing who we are without roles, labels, or external mirrors. In pure silence, there's nothing to validate us. No accomplishments, no one to impress, no setting to reflect our worth. And in that moment, we sense the absence of an inner foundation. That's when we most clearly feel the emptiness we've long tried to fill with noise. This emptiness doesn't always come from trauma. Often, it comes from a life spent disconnected from self. We follow others' expectations, do what's right, earn what's praised, but never ask, what really matters to me? Without answers to such core questions, the soul feels hollow. And when all distractions stop, that hollowness becomes loudest. The usual response is restlessness, anxiety, even mild panic. People describe silence as being stripped bare, nothing to hold, nowhere to hide. They feel unsafe alone, not physically, but emotionally, because they've never built a true relationship with themselves. So they rush back to distraction, anything to avoid that feeling of nothing inside. This avoidance leads to chasing the next thing, goal, success, relationship, as identity markers. They can't be alone, not because they lack company, but because they lack connection to self. Loneliness isn't just absence of people, it's absence of self. So they cling to jobs or relationships not because they work, but to avoid being alone with themselves. The problem isn't the emptiness, it's how we react to it. Emptiness can be fertile ground, a space to rediscover values and meaning. But if unacknowledged, it drives endless motion. We stay busy, not to feel, and in doing so, lose the ability to hear what truly matters inside. In sum, fear of inner emptiness keeps us from being present with ourselves. We fill life with doing, but lack connection. We speak often, but seldom listen. And by avoiding silence, we miss the peace that only comes when we dare to sit with ourselves, without judgment, without escape. 5. We try to control everything and burn ourselves out. In life, we are taught to act responsibly, to be intentional, aware, and deliberate in our choices. Yet the line between responsibility and the illusion of control is often thin. Many, in striving for discipline and success, fall into the trap of believing that to ensure life unfolds correctly, they must control everything, from work outcomes, others' reactions, to unpredictable forces like weather, luck, or emotions. This confusion leads to prolonged tension, as they strain to preserve an order never truly within their control. Responsibility means taking deliberate action within the scope of one's influence, managing time, health, skills, commitments, and personal consequences. Control, on the other hand, is the belief that if one is cautious, smart, and prepared enough, nothing will go wrong. This is a seductive but false belief. Life is inherently uncertain. Work is a prime example. Some approach it with a no-errors mindset, demanding perfection, obsessing over timelines, micromanaging colleagues. Eventually, they become irritable and anxious, not from incompetence, but from chasing an unrealistic ideal. Instead of collaborating, they take everything on alone. The result: exhaustion, mental strain, and a lingering sense that it's never enough. In relationships, the same confusion appears. People think they're responsible for others' emotions, that someone else's anger or sadness is their fault. They bend over backwards to please, avoid conflict, modify their words and actions for harmony. But emotions belong to the individual. Attempting to manage another's feelings is unnecessary interference. When this becomes habitual, it feels like carrying the emotional world on your shoulders. At the root of this is a fear of helplessness. We dislike uncertainty, so we try to control everything around us to feel safer, even if only temporarily. But when life doesn't follow our script, panic and disappointment erupt. The thought, "I did everything right. Why did it still go wrong?" stems from this false belief in total control. Understanding the difference between responsibility and control is essential for mental balance. When we realize some things lie outside our influence, others' reactions, final outcomes, randomness, we begin to release unnecessary burdens. We still act with care and effort, but drop the illusion that everything must bend to our will. This selective surrender preserves inner peace even when the world does not comply. Modern burnout doesn't just come from workload or lack of rest. It stems from carrying burdens we were never meant to bear. When we believe we must fix every outcome, emotion, and situation, even those beyond our reach, emotional collapse becomes inevitable. Humans often take on for others to help, protect, or avoid conflict. A parent makes every decision for their child out of love. A team member does everyone's job to keep things on track. A spouse sacrifices personal well-being for the family's peace. Though well-intentioned, this pattern creates unsustainable psychological weight, leading to fatigue, resentment, and suffocation by obligation. When we interfere in what isn't ours, others' choices, beliefs, or unpredictable outcomes, we drain energy on things we cannot control. And when results don't match our efforts, self-blame grows, fueling a cycle of overwork and deeper exhaustion. This psychological fatigue worsens when self-worth is tied to fixing everything. We won't rest, fearing collapse if we step back. We feel guilty for saying no, even when depleted. We take responsibility for things others must own, like their pain, their failures, their broken relationships. This identification stretches our nerves thin, leaving no room for ease, even in small things. And the danger is, when we take on too much, we lose the ability to care for ourselves. Personal needs, rest, emotional recovery, reflection, are cast aside. We live like machines until the body and mind shut down. This breakdown is not sudden, but gradual. Silent exhaustion, turning into insomnia, hopelessness, and disconnection from self. Overburdening also stunts others' growth. When one person handles it all, others never learn independence or accountability. The helper becomes both martyr and enabler, undermining both themselves and those they aim to protect. The answer isn't apathy, but learning the difference between what must be done and what can be done. With clarity, we focus on what's truly ours and release the rest. This brings not only mental relief, but greater freedom. Recovery isn't doing less, it's doing only what is truly yours to do. 6. We can't let go of the past. The past by nature is unchangeable. A deed done, a word spoken, an unexpected event, all belong to a moment we cannot return to. Yet many live as though they could rewrite it by thinking longer or blaming deeper. They let what's gone shape how they see themselves, make decisions, even believe in what's possible. But in truth, the only power the past holds is what we allow it to keep. Memory is a double-edged gift. It preserves beauty, but also holds wounds. A painful memory replayed isn't just recollection. It's reliving the emotion. The image, the shame, the helplessness, they come back. Over time, this reshapes how we feel and how we see ourselves. One past mistake can become a label worn for years. Instead of seeing it as a moment in life, we mistake it for identity. A hurtful word once spoken becomes an inner voice of doubt. A past failure builds a wall of fear. The past, though fixed, continues to shape the present through our own perception. We carry the past into relationships too. A betrayal makes us suspicious of the trustworthy. An old wound makes us overreact to the harmless. Relationships collapse not because of the present, but because the past was never resolved. We think clinging to pain protects us from repeating mistakes. But there's a difference between learning and torment. One brings clarity, the other imprisonment. When we loop through emotion without insight, the past becomes a cell, not because it holds us, but because we won't leave. This fixation skews decision-making. Someone once rejected avoids vulnerability forever. Someone once failed never risked again. These choices aren't grounded in the present. There's echoes of fear. Thus, we stop living in now and relive a past filtered by pain. To break free, we must recognize memory isn't truth. It's a record of feeling. It can teach, but not define us. Each present moment is a chance to rebuild. The only thing stopping us is choosing to live as if the past still rules. Memory is essential to human psychology. Through it, we learn, sense danger, and build connection. But not all memories are stored cleanly. When trauma or hurt remains unresolved, it lingers as emotional energy. This leads to recurring negative emotion, even when the moment has passed. The brain doesn't always distinguish between real and recalled experience. Remembering pain can trigger the same physical response: racing heart, tension, shallow breath. The body feels what the mind revives. Left unchecked, this repetition erodes the quality of life. Not letting go means staying stuck in old feelings. Betrayed once, we mistrust all. Failed once, we fear all new challenges. Even in peace, we act like we're still in danger. This hypersensitivity distorts reality and holds us back from growth. Recycled pain twists our worldview. Past rejection makes us see indifference as judgment. We read hostility where none exists. This damages peace, decisions, and connection. Moreover, emotional repetition harms the body. Suppressed anger, chronic anxiety, sadness, these increase risk of hypertension, digestive issues, insomnia, weakened immunity. The body doesn't ask why it suffers, it just reacts to emotions' weight. A lingering memory is more than a mental burden. It's a biological one. The past also restricts growth. Bound to old pain, we fear change, we avoid risk, we choose the familiar, even if it no longer fits. The past, rather than a chapter, becomes a compass. We stop advancing, start avoiding, and slowly lose command of our lives. In sum, when we can't release the past, we don't just recall pain, we relive it emotionally, physically, behaviorally. This repetition teaches nothing. Only when we consciously acknowledge, accept, and release the past can we live fully in the present and create a freer future. 7. We procrastinate and lose the very life we're meant to live. Procrastination is often seen as a sign of laziness, lack of discipline, or poor motivation. Yet psychological research shows it's rarely just a delay in action. It's often the surface of deeper mental processes, especially emotional defense mechanisms rooted in fear. People don't avoid tasks because they don't know what to do, but because beginning means facing discomfort. They'd rather evade fear of failure, inadequacy, judgment, or the fear of changing a long-held self-image. When someone faces a significant task, writing a proposal, changing a habit, launching a project, the brain doesn't just see it as a job. It activates a risk assessment system, projecting every possible negative outcome. If the task touches self-expression, social standards, or identity, anxiety arises. In this state, procrastination acts as a shield, offering momentary relief from perceived emotional threat. But this brief ease seeds a cycle of mental distress. Procrastination also links to the fear of not being perfect. Some delay action because they set unrealistically high standards, leaving them paralyzed. They fear starting and falling short will confirm they are not good enough, so they wait for more time, more confidence, the perfect moment that never comes. Meanwhile, time ticks on, pressure builds, and the loop tightens. Sometimes, procrastination stems from past experiences. Harsh criticism, as after a mistake, may create a fear of error. Being ignored despite effort can form the belief that trying is pointless. These limiting beliefs, left unexamined, sink into the subconscious and surface as avoidance. With each new task, an internal alarm sounds, triggering escape as a learned defense. Notably, procrastinators rarely feel at ease. Instead, they're torn by guilt, pressure, and loss of control. But lacking awareness of the deeper causes, they blame themselves and feel more powerless. This creates inner conflict, knowing what must be done, yet unable to act. Procrastination isn't mere delay. It's an emotional reaction they're not yet equipped to manage. At its core, procrastination is a complex psychological defense. It's not proof of apathy. It's the mind's way of shielding itself from emotional risk. Understanding this is the first step to change, not by force, but by exploring the roots and rebuilding a healthier relationship with failure, expectations, and imperfection. Procrastination is not just delayed action. It's an unseen trade-off of time and emotional clarity. In procrastinating, we choose fleeting comfort over facing discomfort or challenge. That relief might come from lying down instead of working, watching videos instead of studying, or avoiding a hard conversation. In the moment, it feels light, but the cost is time and opportunity, both irreplaceable. This habit operates through an emotional bargain, present ease over future outcome. Humans tend to undervalue long-term impact and overvalue instant gratification, known as present bias. It explains why people binge-watch for hours, knowing full well that their goals are slipping away. The lesser reward wins, simply because it's now. The problem deepens when procrastination becomes automatic. Each deferral brings a fleeting calm, but builds a habit of avoidance and erodes self-regulation. Over time, this leads to lost productivity, confusion, and growing stress. Procrastinators live under mounting guilt, backed-up work, and self-frustration. What's lost isn't just time, but belief in one's ability to follow through. Worse, the temporary comfort of procrastination creates a false sense of productivity. One might clean their desk, check emails, or read news, appearing busy while dodging the real task. This illusion of effort can persist for weeks, even years, quietly draining personal and professional potential. Repeatedly choosing ease over intention also distorts life direction. Delaying goals, learning, health, skill building, meaningful relationships shifts us from proactive to reactive living. Problems are handled only when urgent. Life becomes something we respond to, not shape. Procrastination, then, isn't about poor time management. It's the erosion of agency over one's life. The irony is, the comfort of avoidance quickly fades after the brief lift. Anxiety, regret, and pressure return. And the cycle repeats, wanting change, but never beginning, longing to move forward, but being held back by the comfort of inaction. In short, every act of procrastination is a trade between short-term ease and long-term fulfillment. Repeating this trade not only wastes precious time, it erodes self-trust, dims agency, and distances us from what truly matters. Recognizing this cost is the first step toward breaking the cycle and stepping into the life we were meant to build. Practicing Stoicism isn't some abstract or lofty pursuit. It begins in the most ordinary, often quiet moments. I've lived through times when I had no idea where I was headed. I procrastinated because I feared not being good enough, always waiting for the perfect moment. But that moment never came. And then I realized, every time I chose short-term comfort, I gave up the chance to truly live. Stoicism helped me ask, what's truly within my control, and what isn't mine to hold? When I stopped trying to manage others' emotions, stopped carrying responsibilities that weren't mine, I felt a lightness I hadn't known. I learned to sit in silence, even when it was uncomfortable at first, just to hear myself again. And from that, I understood. Silence isn't what we should fear. What's truly frightening is living without understanding ourselves. I'm not perfect, nor do I aim to be. But each day, I choose to live with more awareness, from how I respond in tense moments to having the courage to start what I've always avoided. Stoicism didn't change the world around me, but it changed how I meet it. And for me, that's enough to begin living more fully. If today's message touched something within you, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss future content. Every video here is a reminder that you are strong enough to rise, steady enough to change, and worthy of a life that has depth. True freedom doesn't come from changing the world, but from mastering yourself. I'll see you in the next video.